Elon Musk shows off fully stacked SpaceX Starship as first orbital launch nears. It's often a mystery to us how Elon Musk gets things done even after heading to several world-changing companies and making technology that we wouldn't ever have dreamed of half a century ago. Yet he's making all this happen, and with that being said, his space venture is moving in the right direction. The reason we get to say this is because Musk finally showed off his stacked SpaceX Starship as the first orbital launch gets closer and closer to us. The SpaceX Starship. The Starship from SpaceX is one of the most ingenious spacecrafts ever created. And in the history of SpaceX folklore, this piece of metal is considered a legend. Nothing more, nothing less. A little info on the Starship. The spacecraft uses liquid oxygen and methane as a propellant. Its significant features include high payload, mass capability, and low potential operating cost. The tanker variant of the spacecraft is also planned, which will refuel the remaining Starships in orbit and manage to increase the transport range to higher energy orbits and destinations. This will include the Moon and Mars, and we've known for a very long time about how Elon Musk has been a fan of the Red Planet, so it doesn't surprise us that he has plans to go this far. The earliest variant of this spaceship is going to deploy satellites in space because we all need to know what's going on up there. And if none of us gets to know, then how will we be going to send people up there, right? What's exciting is the later parts of the Starship that will take flight because that variant of the Starship will have tourists with it on board. Lunar landings will also be something that will be looked into once the Starship missions take off. The key feature of the Starship is the low cost of the spacecraft, which allows for space flight at this level to take place. The word reusable mentioned right at the beginning of the Starship description is the game changer, because this will speed things up in the Mars expedition. It's also going to make rockets travel on Earth possible from one point to the other. Launch specifics. The Starship launch hasn't been given a date, but then the man himself, Elon Musk, has confirmed that the hardware is in place and things are ready to go with some minor adjustments being finalized. The Starship will launch at the Starbase Kennedy Space Center along with 2 offshore launch platforms. It'll launch upright, and with the booster 33 Raptor engines operating in parallel, the flight will be even more incredible. After Super Heavy separates, the spacecraft fires 3 Raptor vacuum and 3 sea-level engines, inserting itself into orbit. The booster then controls its descent via its 4 grid fins targeting the launch tower's arms. Once the mission ends and the Starship deorbits, it will enter the atmosphere, where it will be protected by a series of hexagonal heat shield tiles. The spacecraft will then glide towards the landing site as it will use its flaps to control, and if it looks to land, it will flip. Application. We gave an outline of what the applications of the Starship will be, but in this section we will be diving into more detail. Starship will allow the launch of large space telescopes such as the Hab-X telescope, which is directly going to image planets outside the solar system. Several planetary science researchers managed to incorporate the Starship into their research to cite low launch cost and high capacity. There won't be just any satellites deployed because military satellites are something there is a lot of focus on. These military satellites would replace the ones that were destroyed by anti-satellite weapons. Another area of focus is the reconnaissance satellites to fill gaps in the larger satellites in orbit that are destroyed. These satellites could do so much more than they could even go on and carry out the recovery of space debris. With one thing happening for Musk, it would be impossible not to bring along his other ventures for the ride. Starlink's communication satellites have also been planned to release with the Starship mission, as it is seen that Starship and Starlink are very much combined in terms of their goals and long-term ambitions. With both being companies that Musk bought from the ground up, only he can tell what is going through his mind when these companies are in the discussion. Speaking of Musk, let us hear what the man himself had to say as of late. Here's Musk's view. "It's hard to believe it is real, except, it's right there," said Musk on the Starship. Musk has also said about the situation, "Really some wild stuff." Now we can't say precisely what kind of wild stuff might be going on, but we do have a pretty good idea of what Musk and his team might be up to. Because something like this doesn't just happen overnight. It requires hard work, consistency, thoughts out of the box, and an incredible team to make it work. Musk has all the recipes to make this mission one of the most historic ones in Tesla's history. With Musk praising his team and the project, the large structure stood at the center of attention, receiving praise. The ship was set on the launch pad as if it was ready for launch. And with the way Musk says it, the launch might not be too far either. The tower from design to construction took 13 months, said Musk, referring to the launch and catch gantry tower standing beside the Starship. Just a night before, the tower's arms were used to pinch the Starcraft like a pair of chopsticks and then raise it above and down onto the booster. We're aiming for rapid reusability, which is why the booster is going to take off and then fly back to the launch tower and aspirationally land on the arms, which does sound insane, Musk said, explaining the catch part of the launch and catch tower. If it does come in too fast and shear off the arms, then I guess it will be a farewell to arms. This is how much Musk values reusability. The man is hell-bent on leaving the Earth, but he is also trying to improve it if you look at it that way. Nobody would have imagined this kind of technology being implemented for space. Yet Musk is out here making sure that the technology they're using gets to be used again to prevent waste of materials. If a real-life genius ever existed, then this man would be one of the options that would fit the description perfectly. It's worth emphasizing the whole launch system, which is in stage 0, and I'd say as complex and difficult as either the booster of the ship, Musk said. It's a very difficult thing that requires a lot of hardcore engineering. The tower and the launch system, which I called stage 0, are as important as stage 1 or 2. The tower might be at its peak at the moment, but the place where the tower stands is subject to approval from the Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA. This is because they recently carried out an assessment of what is going to happen to the locality if the Starship launches, and they didn't deny the request, nor did they accept it. But what they did say that a more strict assessment is going to be required to evaluate what exactly needs to be done about the launch. Our worst case scenario is that we would be delayed by 6 to 8 months to build up the Cape Canaveral launch tower and launch from there, he said. But the good news is that Musk said that SpaceX might have to move its operations to Florida and NASA's Launch Complex, 39A at the Kennedy Space Center, and that is something the FAA has already agreed to. Musk is also hopeful that the Starship bound for the Earth's orbit could take off in the next several weeks, but for that, approval from the FAA is needed. I think we're close to having the hardware ready to go, Musk said. Right now we're tracking to have the regulatory approval and hardware readiness around the same time, hopefully in a couple of months for both. The Starship is being built for several purposes, which we mentioned above, and the end goal it offers is to become species that will reside on multiple planets. This is what the end game for Musk has been, and he looks well on his way to get it done. Just a few approvals are coming in his way, which we are sure he'll sort out soon. If the moon wasn't enough, now humans will be graced on the red planet as well, and all of it is courtesy of one man alone. That's all we have for today with Musk and his machines, and if you like this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel to avoid missing any upcoming videos.